Welcome. It's SEC Media Days as we are off and rolling live from Dallas. Hit the like and subscribe button. Let's get you on board as coverage will be monstrous, and it's brought to you by our friends at Volunteer Automotive Group. Vol Auto, you've heard of them. They actually will get the rides for your Vols, and they're doing so. They were nice enough to provide me with transportation down here to SEC Media Days live in Dallas, Texas. Also, portions of the program and coverage brought to you by our good friends at Work Trucks. When it comes to Work Trucks, if you're a contractor, you have to get in touch with Work Trucks. Again, check them out online. Very easy. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. WorkTrucksLLC.com is easy to find, or there on Clinton Highway. And as far as our good friends at Volunteer Automotive Group, we'll tell you more about them. And we've got some exciting things planned with them for the near future. So SEC Media Days is here. Caleb Calhoun, we welcome everybody into the program. We'll have exclusive interviews with the Vols when they come through on Tuesday. But today, a little bit lighter of a day. You have LSU, you have Vanderbilt coming in. You also have Ole Miss. Caleb, what are some of the storylines that you look for in day one that is a little bit of a blah day, as I think a lot of the media comes in and they do this kind of by design? Monday is not the hottest day at SEC Media Days typically.
Monday is always the big story of Monday is always typically when Greg Sankey takes the podium. But I think recently they've gone more for splashes on Monday than in years past. I mean, let's not forget that it was a Monday, the start of SEC Media Days, when they announced that Texas and Oklahoma were joining the league 3 years ago, which, set off an earthquake. And look, there are a couple of people going today. I mean, we could say Vanderbilt, but LSU and Ole Miss are going on Monday. And let's be honest, Lane Kiffin is a headline generator. So not like there still won't be stuff to talk about with them.
Plenty to talk about. All right, here we go. So questions I have for SEC Media Days, the biggest questions for day one. And here we go. Let's get into that. You mentioned Lane Kiffin. My question, too, is just how hot will South Carolina be considered? They've come into SEC Media Days before when Shane Beamer had a rap video for recruiting. He is something special. But how hot are they now? Because I get the feeling that this could be Shane Beamer's last media days with the SEC. They finished 5-7. They had an exciting end, which included that Tennessee win to the 2022 season. So what do you make of how hot South Carolina is, if at all, or how not South Carolina may be?
I think South Carolina has definitely lost its luster. And a lot of that for those who don't remember, in 2022, they were all but written off for dead as they were 5-5, I want to say at the time. I'm sorry, they were 6-5. And we didn't think that they would even be able to go to a bowl game or 6-4, excuse me. They were 6-4. They were closing out the year against Tennessee and Clemson. Both were going to have a spot in the college football playoff if they won, and they upset both. They obviously blew out Tennessee, and then they beat Clemson. And so then everybody has this hype behind Spencer Rattler entering 2023, and they just fall apart and go 5-7. The real question for Shane Beamer, and I don't know if anybody's going to have the gall to ask this. Connor Stalions in the Michigan scandal was directly tied to South Carolina in 2022. Many people believe that Connor Stalions gave information on Tennessee and Clemson. I just want to know, did Shane Beamer benefit from that? Is that the only reason he has a job today?
Might well be. Might well be one of those situations, kind of like the Georgia basketball team when they won the SEC tournament, that they would have been better off had they lost at the time.
So they could fire Dennis Felton.
Yeah, they were stuck with Dennis Felton. And in this situation, you're kind of stuck with Shane Beamer. I remind you that the program represented by Banks and Jones. Lane Kiffin, is he still hot, or how hot is he? The show represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. they'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Got other questions for SEC Media Days that I have, and that is, how many now? I'm asking that of Clark Lee. He said back in the day that he wanted to make Vanderbilt the best program in the country. Ha, ha, ha. How many wins do you think would make Lee happy this season?
Well, he obviously had a major drop-off. He went, for those who don't remember, in 2021, he went 2-10. In 2022, he goes 5-7, closes out the year with wins over Kentucky and Florida, and you really start to think that Vanderbilt has something going. As a matter of fact, Dave, after Tennessee lost to South Carolina in 2022, I don't know if you know this, Kirk Herbstreit picked Vanderbilt to beat Tennessee. I think it was Kirk. It was one of the College Game Day guys said Vanderbilt would beat Tennessee because they wouldn't care about that game. That was funny to think about looking back. A year later, Vanderbilt falls to 2-10. They lose to just some really bad losses like UNLV. I mean, their defense just wasn't showing up. Look, it's Vanderbilt. I think if they could ever get lucky and get to 6 wins, that would be incredible, but that's not happening. I mean, they opened the year against Virginia Tech. They got Alcorn State, Georgia State, Ball State. Maybe they win those 3 games, but are they beating Missouri with Brady Cook? Are they beating Alabama? Are they beating Kentucky? Are they beating Texas? Are they beating Auburn? The only other win I see is the other team on the podium at SEC Media Days this year, the only SEC win, and that would be South Carolina at home. I think that's the only SEC team they have a chance of beating this year.
It's LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Let's turn our attention for a moment to Ole Miss. With Ole Miss in particular, it's an interesting case study. Like if you had 2 or 3 of you, Caleb, if I had 2 or 3 of me, I would like to go cover like in depth Ole Miss's program because I find an interesting case study and a bit of a hodgepodge of talent that it could either work at an elite level or it could totally fall apart. I would love to follow that and write about that, but I wouldn't want to be a fan of that.
With LSU, you're saying?
Yeah. No, with Ole Miss and the fact that they...
Sorry, excuse me. I don't know why I thought LSU in my mind. No, I apologize. Yeah, Ole Miss's story is you're right. I am jealous of beat reporters covering Ole Miss right now. It's the most fun thing to cover possible. It's right there with being in Knoxville in 2009, Dave, and getting to cover Lane Kiffin and Bruce Pearl in the same year. And I mean, Ole Miss is right there again. Lane Kiffin. I mean, Lane Kiffin's going to have to be asked how he can mesh all these new players together. If he believes it's going to work, he's trying a method that has just never been tried in college football before. Do you think Lane Kiffin could get himself to admit, I'm doing this because I'm limited on what I can do at Ole Miss? Do you think he would throw Ole Miss under the bus as a program if he got the chance?
Well, I don't think he has to. I think, and please hit that like and subscribe button, guys. We want to bring more people into the conversation, and we'll get to your comments here momentarily. I don't know that it's a secret. I mean, I think he's come out and said it when he's challenged their boosters to provide more NIL money. So, Caleb, it's kind of like that. It's just out there. It's that 800-pound gorilla in the corner. I don't even think it's a secret. I don't think people talk about it, just like people don't, talk about, hey, remember that time that that terrible thing happened, or that thing that happened that could prevent us from winning the championship. I just don't think you talk about it much. But I think it's up to them to provide enough NIL money to compete because they can't do it otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. Now the question is going to become, can they provide the NIL money to maintain the players they get? Because, they provided it to get these players. Can they get the NIL money to maintain the players? Because they can't just constantly have this revolving door the way they've been having. I'm sorry. I'm not some guy that's like, experience over everything. But you do have to somewhat have a little bit of chemistry in football, right? There's too many moving parts in that sport to just say I can plug and play guys, a new team every single year. Never heard that happen. So I think that Lane Kiffin in Ole Miss, I mean, this is going to be a big test for them. This is going to be something if Ole Miss pulls off a 10-2 season, 11-1, or is in the college football playoff, or somehow gets to the Final Four or something like that, Lane Kiffin's going to be the most in-demand coach once again in college football, because that would be a really hard thing to do given how much he had to replace. And I don't think anybody would have ever seen a coach pull that off before.
Nope. Fair point. Let's take a look at the message board real quick to see what we've got going on. People ask about a big commitment. Yes, we'll get right to that. Easiest conference game is South Carolina. Second might be at Vanderbilt, but want to get to LSU. Caleb and I got ripped at times because we thought, and I'm putting words in your mouth, Caleb, so feel free to take them out. But we thought that Tennessee and LSU were the two teams that you should most buy into. When we started this, about a year and a half ago on a full-time basis, Caleb and I together. I don't feel as strongly about LSU. But Caleb, I'm curious what you think.
I still feel pretty strongly because it's LSU and it's just very easy to get Louisiana talent nonstop, top 5 talent in the country every year. And Brian Kelly is, again, the best coach LSU's had since Nick Saban. I'm not as high on them this year as I was last year because they haven't shown me anything to lead me to believe that they've actually fixed their defensive woes. And honestly, I don't know why they are doing the whole Tennessee with Leonard Little thing in 1997. They are just trying to force Harold Perkins in at middle linebacker. They were doing that all last year. Maybe they don't have a middle linebacker, but I think mismanagement of defensive personnel, which is shocking because Brian Kelly is a defensive coordinator at heart. He was a longtime defensive coordinator before he took over Grand Valley State, I guess 30-something years ago. Mismanagement of personnel proved really costly. And while LSU upgrades at quarterback this year, maybe, because Jane Daniels was epic, but people say that LSU might actually be better with Garrett Nussmeier. They're not going to have any drop-off offensively. I mean, that defense team was horrible last year. And I mean, Brian Kelly should just be asked, why was your defense so bad? Why did you mismanage personnel? Why are you still trying to force an edge rusher in at middle linebacker? Doesn't make sense.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to get to Tennessee's big commitment over the weekend. And we got a lot of things to get to in day one of SEC Media Days. The Vols will make their tour tomorrow. Again, coverage brought to you by our friends at Volunteer Automotive Group and Work Trucks. We'll get to the Vols specifically. Also, Tennessee with a big commitment. Tony Botello looked like a TV star in the Major League Baseball draft. And I'm going to challenge Caleb Calhoun. If the Vols ever lose him, it's not going to be the major leagues. It's going to be the television. UT's uniforms, they come out. They're smoky gray. Everybody used to hate that. Now we kind of love it. And then we'll have Greg Sankey, who, depending on when you're watching, is at the podium as we speak. And we'll have his thoughts on the opening of SEC Media Days. Again, we broadcast live from SEC Media Days. And it's brought to you by our good friends at Volunteer Automotive Group. That's where the Vols purchase their cars. That's absolutely right. So certainly check them out. Absolutely love them at volauto.com, volauto.com. And with our friends at Work Trucks, I tell you what, all about trucks. Trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. They've got cargo vans, utility body trucks, all with the Knapheide work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks. And that's a fact. Service industry. Remember Work Trucks. They carry the trucks that your business has to have. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and in downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go online to worktrucksllc.com. You're going to save money if you're a contractor. Worktrucksllc.com. You're going to have a great vehicle if you're a contractor. Worktrucksllc.com. Get the perfect vehicle you have to have. The perfect vehicle. Worktrucksllc.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. What do you expect out of the Vols when they hit the podium on Tuesday? There's a little disappointment, frankly, still, that I think that it could have been a better lineup with a Nico, a James Pierce. Those would have been two that I would have brought. I understand the reasoning behind not bringing them for a couple of different reasons. But what do you expect out of Cooper Mays, Omari Thomas, and Keenan Pili, of course, Josh Heupel, being representatives of the Vols? They play it pretty close to the vest. What do you think they'll have to say on Tuesday?
Well, I think Josh Heupel's going to be asked why he didn't bring Nico specifically. And I think he should be, because if I'm going to be honest with you guys, look at all the other quarterbacks that are being brought to SEC Media Days. Not all of them are returning were starters last year. I mean, everybody who has this is the year of the quarterback in the SEC, and everybody who has a potential star at the position or just a potential solid player is bringing him this year. And Josh Heupel held firm and said, nope, I'm going with the seniority move, so I'm not going to bring Nico. I would ask him about that. You got to ask about the issue with James Pierce and the traffic incident, because you got to wonder if that's why they kept James Pierce quiet. We spoke about those last week. As for the players themselves, I think Keenan Pili will be asked about his health and things like that. Omari Thomas will be asked about the defense as a whole, the front seven, how good it could be. Lots of questions about the front seven, because they're bringing 2 defensive front seven players. They didn't bring anybody from the secondary, so there should be questions about the secondary asked because of that. And then with Cooper Mays, I don't think there's a lot of questions, funny enough, about quarterback or receiver this year. I think what I'd want Cooper Mays to talk about, and we talk with him every week anyway, so it's not the same level, and he's talked to us some about this, but the offensive line rotation, because there's still a question at left guard, and also the running back situation. We don't really know who's going to emerge yet at running back, Dave, and that's still a major issue for Tennessee. So I think running back, offensive line, secondary, just how loaded could the front seven be? Those are all questions for the players at SEC Media Days this year.
Caleb, I want to share a little something, but I don't want to share too much. I am going to take the stance that with James Pierce, I understand not bringing him to SEC Media Days. And I can't share with you the reason why, but I can share that he's gone through some difficult situations that putting him in front of a camera and hundreds of media members might not have been the best thing to do at this current moment in time. Now, the other side of me wants to say, well, he's going to have to do that in the NFL. And what happens if he makes a huge mistake and has to answer questions in the NFL? You pretty much have to do that. You can run away 1 or 2 times, but you're not going to be able to do it for the most time. But this is not something where you have to be a part of. So I'm going to say I'm okay based off what I've been told. I know I'm asking you to kind of take this leap of faith with me, but Caleb, I'm saying it's okay with James Pierce. That's my stance. Nico, I got no argument. I got 0. I mean, he should be here, and it is a shame. But with the players that are going to be here, I want to ask Keenan Pili personally, and I will ask him, what is it about his upbringing that makes him such a natural-born leader? Because from the people I talk to, he is right up there with leadership skills as far as anybody. And Caleb, his resume at UT is only about 80 plays. So that's saying something right there.
That is. It's been something we've been talking about for a while, that the team fell in love with Keenan Pili. Dave, I got to be honest, we talked about this last summer. We may have forgotten about it, but they fell in love with Keenan Pili last year before he got hurt in the opener against Virginia. It was. So there is a lot of love for Keenan Pili, the player. I think that's one of the storylines of Tennessee for SEC Media Days. Look, we could talk about James Pierce and Nico. You don't need SEC Media Days for storylines for them, do you? Those will be stories all year long. James Pierce and Maliava. Keenan Pili is one that is a storyline because nobody saw this coming, that he would emerge to be one of the biggest star players for Tennessee, despite having only played how many snaps?
Oh, I was guessing it was like 80. I don't really know. It was one game.
Yeah, I don't even think it was 80. He got hurt in the middle of the game, right?
Yeah, but he went out there, so we're guessing. It could be 40, it could be 20, it could be 60, it could be 80.
Yeah. It's shocking that he's this level of popular among the team. And I think the coaches love him. I think the players love him. And I think it should lead a lot of people to believe that Tennessee's will have an upgrade at middle linebacker this year if he's able to stay healthy. I think there's a lot of questions to ask. And that's why I talked about, I think one of the questions for Keenan Pili is just how good could this front seven be? if James Pierce is the star, Amari Thomas is coming to SEC Media Days for a second year in a row, and everybody believes in Keenan Pili as this elite of a player who Tennessee just missed out on last year at middle linebacker.
This sounds crazy. But Keenan Pili is Tennessee's at least, if not higher, third most important player. And I think there could be a debate with Cooper Mays because we had the after effect from Cooper Mays' return last year. So bear with me if you're on the message board and tell me if you get what I'm saying here. You saw how bad that Tennessee was up front without Cooper Mays against Florida, right?
Right.
And then you saw how much better they could be with a quarterback that had issues, right?
Right. Correct.
We never saw how much better the defense could be with Keenan Pili in there after an injury. So we don't truly know the upside. Could this be a Mike Singletary level, Ray Lewis level type of player that could take Tennessee up a notch just by his presence on the field? Yes, based off what I'm told, knock him up a notch and don't be surprised when it happens because he's that kind of leader. He's that kind of player. He knows the playbook that well. Kind of like Quality Tire Pro. They know your car that well, serving the Chattanooga community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. I'll say it right now. He's more important than James Pierce. Am I crazy?
Well, there is value over replacement where Keenan Pili is pretty high. And then there's just value where James Pierce is pretty high because you don't get rare talent like James Pierce. There's a lot of other edge rushers on this team that are very good, whereas if Keenan Pili went down, you wouldn't be able to replace him as easy at middle linebacker. But Dave, while there are other edge rushers who are very good, there aren't edge rushers who are transcendently, historically great the way James Pierce is. So I think sometimes a historically great player, even if there's depth behind him, still outweighs a player who fills a void that would be much worse if he wasn't there. The other question is, and the only reason I somewhat push back on this is we don't necessarily know how much of a drop-off there is for Tennessee this year at middle linebacker. Last year we saw it. All due respect to Elijah Herring, smart player, hard worker, everything you like in a player, didn't have lateral quickness to play middle linebacker. Just didn't have enough of it.
He's a defensive end. Yes, Travis. Yeah. I said if Pili is Singletary or Ray Lewis. I didn't say he will be. Yeah, Elijah Herring's a defensive end. That's a simple fact about the matter.
Yeah. This year it's Jeremiah Thielander. And apparently he was very good in spring camp, Dave, which actually led Herring to hit the transfer portal. So I say that to say maybe there won't be the same drop-off from Pili to Thielander that there was last year when you add the fact that Pierce is such a generational player. I mean, there's one player on Tennessee right now who could arguably go down. Like, let's say it, Dave. We could see James Pierce going down as a top 5 edge rusher in the history of the NFL one day, right? Like, he could outdo DeMarcus.
Well, that seems a little strong. Top 5?
Who would you take coming out of college, James Pierce or DeMarcus Ware?
I would actually take James Pierce.
Yeah, exactly.
But DeMarcus Ware is not a top 5 pass rusher of all time in the NFL.
No, he's not. I'm not talking about on the line defensive end. I'm talking about that hybrid outside linebacker on the line type of guy.
Let me make sure. Are you talking about top 5 in the NFL at a current moment in time or top 5 all time?
All time. Not pass rusher, because that would factor in like the defensive lineman who played on the line like Reggie White. No, I'm talking about edge rusher specifically. That, what Jeremy Pruitt invented.
So I'm trying to help you here. So you're saying that the evolution of the game plays into your argument. That
yes,
there are now edge, capital EDGE. I hate the term, but they're edge rushers that are allowed to play with their hands down or not, and he could be that guy. So that term has only been around for what, like 5-7 years, something like that?
Yes, exactly. And he could be top 5 all time to play that role.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought you'd gone crazy Caleb on me, but you won me with that one. I'll say that. You're basically, instead of all time, you're saying past decade.
But so that's what I mean. Do you think Keenan Peely has a shot at being a top 5 middle linebacker in the NFL? I don't. I have a lot of respect for Keenan Peely, but I don't think he's a top 5 middle linebacker.
Not top 5 all time, but I think he can be good. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. We want to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry? How about the Fire Opals? The Tennessee tradition. That's at rickterryjewelry.com. rickterryjewelry.com. Coming up, yes, Tennessee got a huge, monstrous commitment. We're going to discuss him in just a moment. As we remind you, we're broadcasting live from SEC Media Days. It's Tennessee on Tuesday. We'll have coverage throughout the week live in Dallas, Texas, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Volunteer Automotive Group. Go to volauto.com and Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. If you're a contractor, you are losing money if you're not using Work Trucks. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
There we go. As Caleb got surprised there with a quick yawn, as we remind you, we're brought to you by our good friends at Ray Varner Ford and Caleb, Tennessee, with a huge commitment, a monster commitment. Tell us about what the Vols picked up, and it's no surprise he happens to be a highly rated wide receiver.
Yes, Travis Smith Jr. commits to Tennessee, a 4-star across the board out of Atlanta. He picks Tennessee over Alabama, Auburn, and Georgia. This is a huge pickup for a few reasons. For those who don't know the way Tennessee is structured right now at receiver, I can tell you this up front. I don't even need sources to tell you this. Tennessee didn't offer this guy a lot of NIL cash. They don't have to. Is that fair to say, Dave?
Yes.
They don't have to offer NIL cash. So they're not beating Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn on NIL money. They're not beating.
Let me say one thing. As much NIL cash. Nobody's getting things done without some form of payment, right?
Correct. But they're not going to beat Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn on that.
You don't have to Nico him. You don't have to drop $2 million in his lap.
Right. They're not going to beat Georgia in location. He's from Atlanta. Obviously, Georgia's closer. They're not going to beat Georgia in program prestige. Georgia's won 2 of the last 3 national titles and was probably the most talented team last year. They're not even going to beat Georgia in terms of selling playing time. I think it's easier for a receiver to get on the field right now at Georgia than it is for Tennessee, given how deep they are. And amidst all of that, he still chose to go to Tennessee. Dave, the Heupel discount is in full swing for wide receivers at Tennessee right now. That's what this is. Wide receivers are falling over to get to Tennessee because of how much work and success Josh Heupel, Joey Halsley, before that Alex Golesh, and yes, Kelsey Pope, the current receivers coach, have had with the Vols. That Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt success from 2021 to 2022 has had such an impact now that I think that Tennessee is just going to be a factory for weapons going forward, and this is just another part of that.
I believe that Smith, for all, and you stole my thunder, but for all the reasons, you stole my thunder in the column too. That's really good on offthehooksports.com, and I encourage you to check it out. Shameless plug of ourselves. I think it's the most significant pickup that Tennessee has in their upcoming class that's not named George McIntyre. And I think you could argue that he's bigger than McIntyre. I will take McIntyre because he's a quarterback. And theoretically with Merklinger, you have another quarterback that is the heir apparent Nico. You and I have our doubts. We'll see. But that's significant. And he's one of the highest rated. So I don't want to just fluff off and say, just George McIntyre. Let's make this easy. And just say Travis Smith so we can get some clicks. No, I'm not going to do that. But I think Travis Smith is as big as George McIntyre. We're talking about similarly ranked guys. I think he's as big as offensive tackle Douglas Utu. I think he's as big as defensive lineman Marion Dye, defensive lineman Ethan Utley. Those are the 4-star guys that are rated ahead of him, according to GoVols 24/7 composite. All 4-star guys. But everything you said, going into Atlanta, Georgia, and getting this type of kid because of something that isn't NIL cash, because all the reasons you listed, I'm not going to rehash them. I think this is as significant as any commitment that Tennessee has gotten in its class. And I will go so far as to say this could be the type of commitment. Tennessee's really good now, right, Caleb? But they're not elite. They're not championship contender level proven yet. You think they will be this year, but they're not proven yet. They still need that influx from Atlanta. This could be the type of guy that we look back on like we did in the 1998 team and said, oh, that's your Deion Grant, that's your Jamal Lewis, that's your Cozy Coleman, because he was willing to be the first to take a jump. Don't think that Georgia is so hot in recruiting they can't be beat right now for a couple of reasons. They're not going to give as much NIL money because they don't have to. There's issues on the roads that bothers parents. And I think Kirby Smart's one of those guys that you've really got to like to play for. You got to like to play for that style. A lot of people aren't. So where would you rank Smith's commitment among the others that Tennessee has picked up?
As far as level of impressiveness in terms of a pickup, you're right. He's number one. This is the most impressive pickup Tennessee's had among everybody they've picked up this year. I mean, I can honestly say that. Y'all can think I'm crazy, but the closest one is Trey Podiat, because he's from Wisconsin. Luke Fickell's a defensive backs coach, so it's a kind of a good situation there. Tennessee has questions about defensive back, so that was pretty impressive. But actual impressiveness of just landing talent, this isn't even a question. Travis Smith is the most impressive one. To get a guy from Atlanta out of Georgia, when it's not like you had exterior factors to give you an advantage between playing time, NIL, program prestige. Like in the 90s, you at least had program prestige. It's shocking that Heupel got this guy, and it speaks to a level of recruiting ability that many of us, myself included, didn't think Josh Heupel had. I never saw Josh Heupel as much of a recruiter, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I saw him more as a ball coach who could recruit. And, there's a difference, Dave, right, between the two.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference. Steve Spurrier, I can name other guys that have won it with that type of approach, certainly. And to be honest with you, somewhat more exciting. Do you remember how boring those Alabama teams were that relied just on recruiting and running the ball and defense? And they almost blew a lot of second half leads. So, yeah, if I had to choose between the two, great recruiter, good coach, or good recruiter, great coach, I would probably go with the latter.
I would too, because quite honestly, the recruiting ability, there's kind of a ceiling that you all hit. And then at that point, the success is based on the program you're at, right? And just the time and place more than it is. It's also
based off just a check. I mean, nowadays with NIL, it negates recruiting in a couple of different ways. It negates it in terms of its importance, and it negates it in terms of its long-term ability to look at a program because of transfers and say they're more talented than another program. So, yeah, the game's changed.
A lot. It's changed significantly. Now, I want to break this down real quick with Travis Smith, because just real quick before we end this topic, I looked at some of his highlights, Dave, and this is underrated, but Travis Smith consistently accelerated past the secondary on all of his catches, and a lot of them were short routes and things like that. I wouldn't look into it. You see receivers do that all the time in high school highlights, and I almost never look into it because it's high school. It's their level of competition. But if they're doing that in Atlanta and that Georgia competition, it's legit, right? If they're doing it against that competition, they're going to do it in the SEC, aren't they?
You've stole everything from me today. All of my takes. Yes. If you had said a guy looks like he's accelerating and played in Idaho, I would have had a much different response. But Westlake plays a really good competition. So if you're showing out there at Westlake, you're doing a great job for yourself. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friends at Medicare Misty, whether it's you or your parents, perhaps, that need a little bit of, Medicare assistance that's free. Medicare Misty, and then a concert at Neyland Stadium next. We'll get Caleb's thoughts. Off the Hook Sports. Medicare Misty, tell us about it. 30 seconds.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right, it is on our YouTube page right now. We want you to vote. I'd most like to see blank in concert at Neyland Stadium because Morgan Wallen just announced that he will have his show there at Neyland Stadium. Are you excited about that? We'll get your thoughts. So far, no. Morgan Wallen gets 19% of the vote. Dolly Parton gets 38% of the vote. Anyone else gets 43% of the vote. Who would you like to see perform at Neyland Stadium, Caleb?
Who would I like to see perform at Neyland Stadium? I mean, y'all know I'm a Taylor Swift fan, so I'd love to see Taylor Swift perform at Neyland Stadium. I'd love that. I'm a Swiftie. Y'all can hate me all day. All right. But also, oh my gosh, just a Nickelback Avril Lavigne concert together would just be one of the greatest concerts.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely horrible. God bless those athletes.
Canadian concert, baby.
We may change it up to get a little Taylor Swift in there, but Morgan Wallen announced that September 22nd he'll be doing his show, his country music stuff, and wearing his number 6 jersey and dancing around and doing stuff. So that was that's what he'll be doing. And I guess he won't mess up the field. Let's certainly hope not. He's Caleb Calhoun. We want your vote, though. Right now, it is Dolly running away with this thing, but over Morgan Wallen. But anyone else, we might replace it with Taylor Swift here in just one moment. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Big Ben 4x4, $29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, $51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, $46,929. Ravona Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Welcome back as we broadcast live from SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas. That still sounds weird to say. Today it's LSU, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina making the run through the gamut as they'll visit with the media. We also will have a little bit later in the program some updates on what Greg Sankey had to say as he visits with the media. It'll be Tennessee. That will be Tuesday as they will make their run through. And we know now that it'll be Keenan Pili. We've known this for a while. It'll be Keenan Pili. It'll be Omari Thomas, Cooper Mays, and Josh Heupel representing the Vols. Coverage of SEC Media Days brought to you by our good friends at Volunteer Automotive Group. Volunteer Auto Group, winners shop here. Volunteer Auto Group. Go to volauto.com and worktrucksllc.com. Worktrucksllc.com in Birmingham and in Knoxville. I'm telling you guys, if you are a contractor, you have got to know Work Trucks. Work Trucks LLC. They take trucks and they transition them to what you need. They're barely used, taken care of, and you're off and running. I'll tell you more about that as we keep rolling on. And new poll question. So I changed it up, and I know where Caleb's going to go on this one. Morgan Wallen announcing that he will do his show and his dancing and his music there in the Neyland Stadium. And I ask you this, who would you most like to see perform in Neyland Stadium? Morgan Wallen, Taylor Swift, or Dolly Parton? Caleb, I know that you're going to go Taylor Swift, but who do you think wins it?
I think in that scenario, Dolly Parton's going to win it.
Man, I hope so. Do you think she could still do like an hour and a half show at her age?
I don't know. That's tough, man. That's tough.
Pretty difficult to me. I think I would take a hard pass on that. All right. What did you think of this guy named Tony Vitello, who won a national championship for the Vols, was all over the place when it came to the Major League Baseball draft? Got to see Christian Moore drafted as high as anybody in almost 50 years. And Tennessee was the face of college baseball for an entire week. How much, or entire 2 weeks, now with Tony Vitello extending that and him on TV breaking down Major League Baseball drafts, how big are these past 2 weeks for Tennessee's baseball program? And if you want to take it a step further, Tennessee's athletic department.
Oh, it's been huge for the baseball program. For those who don't know, I mean, last week they set up there and loaded up on new talent with transfers and the recruiting and on the recruiting trail and things like that. And then they go and lead everybody with players taken in the MLB draft or in the first round of the MLB draft. I mean, we're talking Billy Amick, Dylan Dreiling, I believe my mind's drawing a blank, Blake Burke, Christian Moore, that they're loading up all over the news with this. Look, it does add to relevancy for the athletic program as a whole when you see a school like Tennessee doing this. I mean, we talked about it last year. You know, Dave, when LSU won the national title in women's basketball and baseball, it came across as just a sexy program, even in a way that it could affect football, didn't it?
Yes. I think I know where you're going. So are you saying the Lady Vols did help Tennessee recruit or no?
I'm saying back in the day, they did. We know that. And I'm thinking baseball could do the same thing. Tennessee comes across as a sexy athletic program right now. And baseball helps with a guy like Tony Vitello, who's got swag, and an athletic director like Danny White, who has a ton of swag and youthful energy.
How big is swag for Tennessee's program? I think it's significant, but I'm gonna downplay it just a little bit. Okay, brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best in sports memorabilia. Go to Facebook, follow them, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. Follow them, and you will get updates that are fantastic. Here, while I think that there is this young youthfulness, almost cocky, confident feel for Tennessee's athletic department, that is not the most prominent trait I believe that exists. I believe it is a positive, supportive culture. And I know you can easily say, Dave, anybody says that, especially during the early stages of a coach's career like Josh Heupel, who is entering his 4th year. You're just pumping things up to make everybody happy. No, I can tell you that I would have told you that with Butch Jones and the other guys, Bullet Head and Derek Dooley, that I had heard bad things at this point, even when things were going okay publicly. So I haven't heard any bad things about this program, including players that they were worried about maybe getting in trouble. So I don't think that's the overlying characteristic of this athletic department. Does that make sense, Caleb?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm
I think
not you saying they're young and confident. I'm just saying that to me, my takeaway is that they're more ultra supportive of each other.
But that says a lot because we have a history of Tennessee that we know about where not only were they not ultra supportive of each other, but a lot of times they didn't have the ultra support of the athletic department where, you know this, Dave, administrators were quick to cut bait if they felt that there was any drawback to a program whatsoever. And that's where I say Danny White comes in. You don't get that with Danny White. I mean, I'm just going to say it. The whole Heupel Nico thing with the NIL violations that came after Tennessee back in January, Dave, an old administration would have said, okay, what do you need us to do? What do you need us to do? How high do you want us to jump? Whatever. Danny White, Josh Heupel come in and say, no, F you to the NCAA. We complied with the previous investigation and did everything you wanted, and we're going to go to all-out war with you now. And that's exactly what they did. And so I think that's part of this swag that I talk about where Tennessee this Tennessee administration and as a program in athletics in general has no problem thumbing their nose at the establishment, putting it that way, and just full on supporting their program in general.
What will be the message that Josh Heupel tries to convey? There will be some sort of talking point. There will be something there. What do you predict might be the message that he will try to convey?
This week at SEC Media Days, you mean? Or
yes.
Is it about the athletic department as a whole?
No, I mean specifically about his football program.
Oh, he's not going to convey any message. His message will be there is no message. It's Josh Heupel. He's the anti-Tony Vitello in that way. And it's something that I think people criticize a lot, is that Josh Heupel almost does the opposite, where he just keeps things very close to the vest. But I think where people forgive it with Josh Heupel, Dave, more than because this Philip Fulmer kept things close to the vest too. But the difference is Josh Heupel has a flashy offense and a flashy system that he doesn't talk about as much, but it's fun on the field. It's not Spurrier, where Spurrier had a flashy system and then Spurrier talked, making him even more flashy. Josh Heupel just has a flashy system in general. He doesn't really talk too much about it.
All right. So should he be more outgoing? Should he be more Spurrier-like for the betterment of the program?
So should he basically be more like Tony Vitello?
Yes, Tony Vitello.
I don't think he has to be. And I know as a media guy, we kind of wish he was, but I understand why he's not. And I don't think he has to be, because I think he knows that his offensive system and the way he runs his program is naturally going to make a splash and make it flashy. And he doesn't want to add to that any more than he needs to. It's a little bit different from Lane Kiffin, who I think is actually kind of closer to Spurrier today than anybody else, because Lane Kiffin will talk. Heupel's way is, I got 55 points right now. Why don't I try to stick in this last touchdown just so I can get over 60 on you? And then he'll gaslight the rest of us to be like, I was just coaching the game. I'm just doing my job as a coach. Keep it very simple, but low key, he's absolutely demolishing you. With Josh Heupel, it's death by 1,000 cuts, isn't it?
Yes. So Morgan Wallen wins our first poll question. Second, actually, 42% say they'd like to see him in Neyland Stadium, followed by Dolly Parton. 36% of the vote. Taylor Swift gets 21% of the vote. I changed it up a little bit. Josh Heupel needs to blank. Say more at SEC Media Days. Say less. Keep saying little. And it's been up there for a minute or two. Go ahead and vote on that. But right now, you're right. I don't think fans care if he says anything or not. I don't think they want him to come out and refer to the team in red like Butch Jones did, which made Alabama see red. But right now, 0 have said say more at SEC Media Days. 14% say even less. 86% say keep saying little. That's what he's going to do. We may not like it, but that's the best thing for the program, right?
Yes, it's the best thing for the program. Josh Heupel's offensive system says it all. Again, if this were Philip Fulmer, or even Nick Saban or any of those old school systems that was a little more ground and pound, the system itself wasn't flashy, I'd want my coach to say more. You don't need Josh Heupel to say more. Josh Heupel's got an offense that'll drop 50 on you in a quarter. He's going to go for that one day, Dave. Josh Heupel's going for 50 and a quarter one day. And he won't say anything about it, but he's going to see if he can pull it off. I think Tennessee's record of points scored in a quarter is 35. So 2 more touchdowns, and he's there.
Oh, you have to go. Wouldn't he have to go for 2?
One of them, yeah. You don't think he would? That's how he does it. Josh Heupel doesn't say anything. He just blatantly shows you he's going to rub it in your face when he can.
Yeah, Colton says, and I think he's probably where most fans are, I want him to say more because I want to listen to him talk, but it's so boring. He is the master. And, guys, he takes a lot of pride in being the master, Caleb, of not saying anything. I know for a fact that he has gone up to reporters and said, good luck writing something out of that. Derek says, I just want to line up and watch our team play football and let it speak for ourselves. So far, that's where the majority of the fans are. But it is fun having a Steve Spurrier who will call opposing columnists. Now, we do have a couple of votes that say more at SEC Media Days. At the end of the day, does that really matter, though, if he says more or less, Caleb?
It doesn't really matter at all. I think it's more fodder for us. I think there are schools and coaches that need to do that. Again, this comes from based on what's gone on with the baseball program. I think Tony Vitello needed to talk. Tony Vitello needed to be out there. He needed to generate that interest in Tennessee baseball, given how apathetic it was. It's just like back in 2005, Bruce Pearl had to rub fans the wrong, not fans. Bruce Pearl had to rub people the wrong way to promote Tennessee, didn't he? To just get Tennessee to a level of popularity that they weren't there before. Heupel doesn't really have to do that with Tennessee football. Now, Bruce Pearl, like Heupel, ran a unique, fun system that added to the allure of Tennessee when nobody in the SEC was doing that basketball-wise. But that alone wasn't going to be enough for Tennessee basketball. There needed to be more excitement. And so I think that's why Bruce Pearl was such a successful coach before what happened. I think Tony Vitello has to be that too. Josh Heupel, you run a successful system. You run a fun system at Tennessee. You're going to immediately just fill up the stadium and have fans ready to go to bat for you and go to war for you. And that's exactly what Heupel's doing right now.
Can you imagine for a moment if Josh Heupel was more like Tony Vitello? I mean, goodness gracious, football coach may not be big enough for him. He might just, based off events over the weekend, maybe he could become president. But he at least could become mayor or governor if he wanted to take a pay cut, Caleb. I mean, can you imagine if a guy with the success and the absolutely lovable, exciting offensive style that he has had a little bit of public sticking it to you? Fans would absolutely eat that up.
They would absolutely love it. They would. Dabo Swinney had a little bit of that, and I think it helped Clemson recruit. Remember?
He did. He had one before they won a championship where somebody asked him about Clemsoning, which was their local term for losing games that they shouldn't lose to lesser opponents. Yeah, and he went off, and the next year they won a championship. It's funny you bring that up.
Yeah. Even funnier, Spurrier was always good at quipping other programs. You notice Dabo Swinney was the only one to ever go back at Spurrier when Spurrier was in South Carolina, because Spurrier at one point said, I can't tell, we go play Clemson. I'm used to LSU, so I don't think of Clemson as Death Valley. I think of LSU as Death Valley. And then Dabo Swinney comes back, and Dabo Swinney goes, well, I don't think of South Carolina as USC. I think of Southern Cal as USC. So I don't know who we're playing when we play USC. And so Dabo was the only one to fire back like that, and it helped. I don't think Heupel needs to do that as much. I think in 2009, Tennessee really wanted somebody to fire back at Florida because there was a genuine hatred of Florida and Urban Meyer at that time, and that's what Lane Kiffin did for them. But I don't think that's as necessary anymore.
Take 1 second, hit that like and subscribe button. Why Josh Heupel's approach is perfect, I believe. Brought to you by TriStar Hats. For the latest in TriStar Hats, go to the original Hats, Apparel, and more. TriStarHatsCo.com. TriStarHatsCo.com, as you can wear some fantastic TriStar apparel that you'll absolutely love. I'm completely comfortable with how Josh Heupel handles the media. It does filter down to his players that I believe they're guarded, that they are guarded and believe that they got to be careful sometimes. That to me is a little disappointing. I would like to see players grow a little bit more. But Caleb, I don't have a problem with the way Josh Heupel is approaching things. I just know going into it that you're going to pick one little thing to write about. You're going to say you were there, see if any news happens. We do have a little bit of news that I want to get to. But for the most part, you're not going to see a lot of news come out of a Josh Heupel press conference.
No, you're never going to see a lot of news come out of a Heupel press conference, and he's not going to let his players give a lot of news. I think he's thinking about his players' well-being when he does that. He's trying to prepare them for the NFL because the NFL puts on a masterclass. Oh, don't they say a lot without saying anything? And you know, the inventor of that was Peyton Manning, by the way. You ever remember Peyton Manning press conferences? He would talk to you. He would give you thousands of quotes, and you couldn't use one of them for anything revealing. Wouldn't like one of them revealed anything a lot of times.
And I remember him one time saying to me, I asked him a question. He goes, you got to give me a little more than that. And I was like, okay. And it was about the Ben Roethlisberger. Remember when he was in a traffic accident on his motorcycle? And it was because he was really guarded and he didn't want to say anything bad about any of his cohorts out there. And Caleb, I understand that, but listen, we enjoy seeing people go viral. We enjoy people calling people out. So it's something we enjoy. So I don't think that anybody would say they wouldn't like it if Heupel was a little bit more out there. However, that being said, the last thing you want to be is Shane Beamer. Was that 2 years ago when he did the rap video? And he was a laughingstock at SEC Media Days. Everybody was joking about him, and that's not what you want.
No, you don't want that at all. You don't want Shane Beamer for a lot of reasons. He makes a lot of jokes that are worth laughing at. The thing is, when you do give those quotes, yes, if you act a certain way and you're not winning, you look like a clown at that point. I mean, even Brian Kelly, all of a sudden we talked about LSU, though that weird accent and that weird dance with the recruit. We never thought anything of it at the time because he had such good success his first year at LSU. But after a drop-off, doesn't it seem like we're talking about that a lot more now, Dave, in a negative way with him, the way we weren't last year?
Yeah. Very fair point. Very fair point. Again, we broadcast live from SEC Media Days, live at Dallas, Texas. Loving to be here. We'll be back with you in 2 minutes, and we'll have the latest on what Greg Sankey had to say at SEC Media Days. Also, UT's uniforms. They're smoky gray and tri-star. That used to be cause for major fan upheaval in Knoxville, but now it's just beloved. 2 minutes off the hook sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Bronco Sport Big Ben 4x4, $29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, $51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, $46,929. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Broadcasting live from Dallas, Texas, SEC Media Days brought to you by our good friends at Work Trucks with an X, worktrucksllc.com. If you're a contractor, you need to know worktrucksllc.com in Birmingham and Knoxville. Also, our good friends at Volunteer Automotive Group. That's where the Vols purchase their vehicles. You should as well. Thank you so much, Jamie, and to the guys for the fantastic vehicle I had. We'll have pictures up on it, and we already have, as a matter of fact. If you want to follow us on our social media channels, we greatly appreciate that. At the Dave Hooker, at Caleb Calhoun, or at OTH Sports Media. You can follow us all there. So he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Let me tell you a little story here, if I may. Tennessee one time decided to utilize alternate jerseys. Those alternate jerseys were put together in roughly a week. Those alternate jerseys made Tennessee fans so mad that some even left the stadium in the midst of what would be a blowout over South Carolina in 2009. Now, it seems like you could put a smoky pile on the side of the jersey and people would love it. Is it as simple as this, Caleb, that it's just winning? It's just winning. They could go out there with purple on and people would be cool with it.
It's absolutely just winning. When Butch Jones was doing the smoky gray uniforms towards the end, and people were like, stop, enough with this. We don't want any of these gimmicks anymore. Well, that's because Butch Jones was losing regularly. So fans didn't want it anymore. I will say this. The hostility to the black jerseys you're talking about that Lane Kiffin donned, that entire way of thinking is why Tennessee had a decade of dysfunction. The idea that you're going to be like, no, we're always the orange jerseys. We have to stick to tradition. Yes, we are Tennessee, and we do things a certain way. Yeah, that's why you fell apart for a decade, because you did things a certain way and you didn't accept that things change. You are no different than what Lady Vols fans have done to the women's basketball program over the past few years, okay?
Can I tell you, Caleb, why Tennessee fans had an argument before and why they don't now?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. It should have been orange and white. There should have been no black. There should have been no smoky gray until Oregon showed that you could boost your recruiting with alternate uniforms. Then you alter it a little bit, okay? But they shouldn't have changed the helmet. The helmet is sacred. Until
oh my gosh.
Hold on. You're gonna agree with me, I promise. Until NIL happened. And then you need to make as much revenue as you can to pay players or to support your school, because your boosters are pulling money from your school to pay players. So now I have no argument. Do whatever you want to do, whatever you think will sell the most apparel, whatever you think will get the most recruits, because it clearly has worked for other schools, is working for Tennessee. Listen, there are a lot. I wasn't crazy about them. I am a traditionalist, but not one where I get completely stuck in the past. But they were a lot to me. But the fans apparently loved them.
So I am not a traditionalist. I'm not somebody who believes in doing new things for buzz. So I'm not going to pretend that these jerseys generated buzz to help Tennessee recruit. I can tell you that doesn't happen. Maryland thought they were doing that when they had those flag-based ugly uniforms 14 years ago. Remember that with Under Armour, Dave?
Yes.
And they were like, oh, we're going to be Oregon East. Didn't happen. That's not what's going to sell it. Now, I will say this. My issue was the traditionalists of opposing the black jerseys led to the traditionalists of opposing any sort of change. And by the way, for those who don't know history, Tennessee's jerseys were originally black. So It's funny that traditionalists would get upset about that.
Well,
You're traditionalist for your time.
Which is why I always thought you make the jump to black. You don't go halfway. You don't gray it because you do have tradition. So I always thought if you're going to do it, do the black like Lane did, but put some preparation into it. Those jerseys looked Caleb, I'm not exaggerating. That's when my son played Little League football. They looked worse than his jerseys. I mean, I saw them up close. They were literally, you couldn't see it on TV perhaps, but they were made in like 2 or 3 days.
That's a more fair argument than the idea that Tennessee shouldn't have done it, though. And so now I will. Right. This is weird. I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm not one who believes jerseys have an impact. But one of the things that Smoky Grays do, I have told people this, and I've said this, and I said this to you. There's debates about college towns and which one's the best. I happen to think Athens is the best college town in the SEC. I love Athens. I think it's beautiful. But I do think a football fall Saturday afternoon has no greater setting than in Knoxville because of the Smoky Mountains and, the orange fan base with the Smoky Mountains and kind of the gray skies because, it kind of gets gray during that time of year. It just looks perfect. The Smoky Grays do lean into that. And it's weird. It does give you a psychological thought of, yeah, it's this fall feel for football in Knoxville. And it does, I think, help with recruiting because who doesn't want to be a part of that feel when you feel that? Athens is a better college town in general, but in the football setting, Knoxville's better.
So wait, you just said you don't think jerseys help a program? Is that what you told me?
I said that, and now I'm changing because I think the Smoky Grays doubled down on a setting that is so perfect for Knoxville. Just like, by the way, one of the things the black jerseys did, I've always said at home the weekend before Halloween, Tennessee should don black jerseys. Again, it's a setting. Black and orange, Halloween, try to get a night game. I'm saying when you can create a setting to remind people that this is the setting you're going to be a part of when you're in Knoxville. You're going to be a part of this amazing setting, the fall football setting with the backdrop of the Smoky Mountains or the Halloween setting for a football game. When you can, there is a subconscious thing that reminds you. If you do it like, oh, I'm just going to have this really outlandish jersey and it's super cool and everybody's going to love it, that's not going to sell because I don't think that's why Oregon recruits well, Dave.
Wait, when you say sell, do you mean sell to recruits or sell on the stores?
Sell to recruits. Sell to recruits. I don't think that's going to sell to recruits. I don't think it's helped Oregon whatsoever. People think I'm crazy on that. I don't think Oregon has picked up one recruit because they're like, I want to wear 100 different green jersey combinations. I don't think that's why. But I do think that if you do it in a way that generates a setting, it is intriguing. And I think Knoxville is one of the only places that can do that, to be fair. I mean, Knoxville may be it.
Derek says it's helped Oregon. We can't ignore that.
I disagree.
What?
I actually disagree. I don't think the jerseys have helped Oregon. I don't think they've hurt them. I just don't think they've helped them.
I think so. And I think they helped your school too, Maryland. Because when I was covering them and they came out with those alternate uniforms that were nonsensical to anybody that didn't know Maryland's flag. But they helped, I know, pick up at least 1 or 2 recruits in one particular year that Under Armour got really serious about Maryland football. So I think it always has a positive effect. I think that unless you just run out there with something stupid, but I think that the thing that you have to be aware of is you don't want to just forget about tradition wholeheartedly to pick up a 3-star running back, right?
Right. I don't see 5 stars committing to a school because of the jerseys they wore one day. I do see, again, the reason I don't think they commit to Tennessee because they're like, I want to wear the Smoky Grays. I think they would commit to Tennessee because of the Smoky Grays, because they would go to a game where they're wearing the Smoky Grays, and it accentuates the setting of a fall setting in Knoxville. And they would say, I want to be part of a fall scene in Knoxville because it's so beautiful.
I'm completely stealing this from you, Meade, but he put it on the message board. Kalen DeBoer. Will Alabama have alternate jerseys?
Do you think Tennessee clings to tradition too hard?
I mean, they claimed alternate jerseys. Do you remember this when the numerals on their jerseys were houndstooth? You had to have a microscope to see it.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
Absurd. Can you ever see them going to something alternate? I can't.
No, that basis, even after the success of Nick Saban, they are way too stuck in their ways in a lot of ways. And I mean, this is the university that there was a saying back in the day, how many Alabama fans does it take to change a light bulb? And it only takes one, but it takes 7 others to sit around and talk about how Bear Bryant would have changed the light bulb. And I think you might end up getting that with Nick Saban going forward. It only takes one Bama fan to change a light bulb, but it's going to take 7 to sit around and talk about how Nick Saban would have changed that light bulb and what he would have done differently with the light bulb.
So this question is on our YouTube page. You've got to vote right now. The new TriStar jerseys are dope. Okay. Ugh. What
Can we share them real quick? Can we share them real quick?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and share them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead and share those and get those up on the screen so we can take a look at them, get your thoughts. Initially, where are you? Dope, ugh, or okay? Kind of gave an out for some people with okay that I probably shouldn't have done, but I did do that.
I'm on the okay realm, honestly. I'm like, it's, my brother texted me about it over the weekend, and he was like, just a little too busy, maybe, these. And now that he says it, I can't unsee it. It's like, I feel like I think they may have leaned in a little bit much, with the stars and then the TriStar and then the Smoky Mountain pattern. It just,
there it is. I like the TriStar patch on the shoulder. It is a little busy. I'll just tell you, it's a little busy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little busy. And
I would go with TriStar pants and a TriStar jersey that I could wear in different combinations. Does that make
sense? And they have like the state of Tennessee with the TriStar logo inside the shape on top of the pants, and it's just like,
Caleb, you're going to have to bring me back up because I'm having technical issues on my end. By the way, the poll question, the new TriStar jerseys are blank dope, okay, ugh. I'm waiting to see if anybody says dope and okay, both 50% of the vote. And yes, Derek, you're right. He read something that's saying orange was chosen based on the daisies that grew on the hillside around campus. That's
exactly true.
That's
true. Very true.
Very good. The show represented by our good buddy T. Scott Jones at Banks and Jones. And want to remind you that and when it comes to T. Scott, it's playing to win, no question about it. And he can do that for you. Why Banks and Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle. That's not Banks and Jones. Tennessee's trial attorney, he will go to trial for you. BanksandJones.com, BanksandJones.com. So Tennessee SEC Media Days, they'll make the run through Radio Row and all of that on Tuesday. We know who it'll be. It'll be Cooper, Omari, and Keenan. We'll have exclusive one-on-one interviews with all those, and perhaps Josh Heupel as well. So Tennessee will come through on Tuesday. Can we get the rest of the week laid out, if you don't mind pulling up the rest of the week schedule as far as who's on which day? Caleb, as I think Tennessee will be one of the teams that fans media are most highly anticipating to see, but I also believe that Alabama and Kalen DeBoer is probably the story this year. When you have a transition from Nick Saban, I can't imagine a bigger story. You?
Yeah, Alabama's going to be the biggest story of the year by far, and they lead off Wednesday morning. So you've got LSU, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt to start off on Monday. Then you have Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Missouri on Tuesday. By the way, as you and I know, Dave, there is absolutely no coincidence that Tennessee is on the same, that Josh Heupel goes right before Oklahoma goes. That was done on purpose, wasn't it?
Well, if they didn't, they'd be crazy not to do it.
Yeah, and largely because, let's be honest, they want Oklahoma media there asking Josh Heupel questions, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, no question. Yeah, you definitely got to make it the same day. And
yeah,
let's face it. I mean, guys, and I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be bumping into Oklahoma media saying, well, how stable is that administration at Oklahoma? Because I think you and I agree that the administration at Oklahoma would have to have a major upheaval before Josh Heupel or Oklahoma would even reconsider getting back together, right?
Absolutely. They'd have to be a major mending of the fences. On Wednesday, by the way, Alabama's first, then it's Mississippi State, then it's Florida, then it's Texas. It's funny that the combination there is Alabama. Kalen DeBoer is out here getting number one. This wasn't planned when it happened, but Kalen DeBoer is out here getting number one recruiting classes, taking over Alabama. Billy Napier, Florida, is still like, maybe year 4 he'll get a top 10 recruiting class. And so that's an issue. And Mississippi State has a new head coach, and then Texas with Steve Sarkisian. Texas and Alabama in there together is interesting. And then Thursday, you're going to have Arkansas, Texas A&M, Auburn, and Kentucky to close it out.
Yep. Want to be sure and thank our good friends as we talk about Greg Sankey here in one moment. Good friend Don Self at State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, Don Self at State Farm has built their reputation and business on taking care of their customers. Greater Chattanooga area, call 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126, or go to donself.net. That's donself.net. Greg Sankey takes to the podium. What stands out about his visit with the media to you as we broadcast live from SEC Media Days in Dallas, brought to you by WorkTrucksLLC.com. That's Work Trucks with an X. And Volunteer Automotive Group, that's volauto.com. Caleb, what stood out about Greg Sankey's visit with the media?
Well, this is a big one. This is very underrated, but they've partnered with Apple, basically, to give all 16 teams iPads to replay game footage on the sideline. Now, this is huge because this way they can, if I'm not mistaken, they can look at the footage to challenge something before the next play is run. Now, and that's a big deal. So, right now, coaches, don't they have to ask the player, hey, did you fumble the ball, break it down? And the player will give his thought. I think they can actually look at the replays now before they challenge, which is a huge benefit. It's a way to get it right. I think Apple CEO Tim Cook graduated from Auburn, and this is where this partnership is going. This is actually something really good that Greg Sankey is doing. And so that's the SEC getting way out ahead of the curve for that. Another thing he mentioned is...
Can I be honest with you on that note?
Sure.
I have a feeling that this isn't about just the SEC. I have a feeling that this is one of those things that you implicate, and then when you break off and create a super conference, you say, oh, we're going to be good guys. We'll give them some iPads, those lower level schools. We'll pitch into them. I think this is a preemptive strike at those that are going to say, what is wrong with the power brokers that destroyed traditional college football? Is that too conspiracy laden? Is that crazy?
No, that's not. That's very intriguing.
Hey, little Johnny, sorry you couldn't come to the party, but here's a sucker, which is essentially an iPad, which is in the dollars we're talking about. A sucker is more expensive than an iPad.
Well, maybe they're tied to this quote by Greg Sankey, because he said at SEC Media Days, he was asked about, the context of private equity-backed super leagues and things like that, which has been talked about in college football. And he said, quote, there's no easy button. There's no magic pill. Made it very clear that there's no ceding authority of college athletics to outside actors. But he says that amidst the partnership with Apple. So I'm like, are we sure you're not soliciting Apple as a private equity backer of a super league you want to start? I'm just saying that's possible.
Okay. This also opens it up for, instead of that TriStar thing that they have on the shoulder, to have an Apple on the shoulder. Are we close to the point where we're going to see sponsors on jerseys?
I mean, yes. I mean, technically, yes. You're very close to that.
Are you okay with that?
No, but I was never okay with, the logo of the brand anyway. I don't know why Nike or Adidas has to make the jerseys, or as opposed to just the school make the jerseys. So that's already, if you think about it, kind of a sponsorship on its own. So
it is definitely. It's just a weird situation in which you have an exchange of products and that sort of thing. But I'm talking about a straight up, like I've got our own Stacey Oliver, who covers Tennessee baseball for us. She's a big Braves fan. I've tuned into the Braves a time or two, and I've seen them with that big yellow patch on the arm. Quickcrete, and they make it yellow and stand out so that it stands out. I don't want that in college. I'm sorry, that's too far. Because what if that one sponsor, that one advertiser ends up being Madoff Investment Group? You don't want somebody besmirching your 100+ year of tradition by questionable business tactics. That to me is way too far, and I've officially entered old fuddy-duddy category. I can tell by Caleb's look in his eye.
No, you're not old fuddy-duddy on this. A lot of younger people don't like this. This is the truth. You can't like capitalism and hate this. This is called capitalism. This is called markets. This is how things work. Sponsorships is a part of it. So you either dislike this and you're a socialist, or you like it and you're a capitalist, but you can't hate.
Okay, wait a second now. Philosophical debate, maybe deep. Aren't college sports supposed to be socialist?
The Supreme Court has officially made clear that's not the case anymore. They struck that down with NIL. They said it can't be socialist. They said that's robbing athletes, and they said the NCAA to pretend that it's amateurism when they're raking in millions is laughable. Now you can maybe make the argument. You can make this argument. It's not amateurism, but it could be socialist because there's equal distribution of revenue, and those aren't the same thing. That's possible. It's up to the courts to decide. But as of right now, it's full-on capitalist. One other thing I wanted to bring up I want to make this clear, and Dave, you'll agree with me. Greg Sankey at one point said, we're 16 teams today, 16 teams tomorrow. People think that means no expansion is happening. That does not mean no expansion is happening, does it? That's just Greg Sankey saying nothing.
Right.
And
it could happen. It could happen next week.
Yeah, exactly. So he was asked about the ACC issues and the litigation, and here's what he said. How closely do I monitor what's happening in the ACC? Yes. What are the implications? I pay attention. As I said, we're focused on our 16. As I said before at Media Days, I'm not a recruiter. Dave, I'm sorry. That just sounds like him saying nothing, but him really saying, yes, I'm obviously trying to go after the ACC teams, but we're going to see what happens.
I think it probably is. Do you think that we'll hear of expansion in this calendar year?
I think we're going to hear of expansion in this calendar month, so 2 weeks. 2 weeks, we will be hearing of expansion in this month. There will be something that happens.
Okay, I want to ask you why you say later this month, because I think if it happens, it'll actually be this week. But our poll question is new and on board, and it ended with the new TriStar jerseys are okay, dope, about 54% to 45% of the vote. Would you be okay with a jersey sponsor like Major League Baseball or the NBA for the Vols? And people are starting to go a little bit crazy for that already. The choices are yes, cash is king, no, too tradition laden. So we'll get your thoughts on that, Caleb. As why do you say end of the month or 2 weeks for a possible conference expansion? What is the deal with the timing? So you're at August 1, July 31st in there.
By the end of the month. It could happen tomorrow, and it could happen by the end of the month.
Right. Oh, I wasn't expecting you to pick the day.
Because again, I agree with Josh Pate in the way he said it. He broke the story, and there's been a lot of reports that a bombshell is expected this month. Media days began last week with the Big 12. That's when you heard the leaking of the Big 12 maybe getting FSU and Clemson. By the way, Dave, you're right. I think the Big 12 was leaking all of that because they wanted the coverage. I don't know if that's actually true. We could hear a bombshell this week that the SEC is adding FSU and Clemson. We don't know. We could hear it that the Big 10 may be next week during media days. But with media days underway and with the reports of the bombshells and with the obvious fact that Florida State and Clemson went out of the ACC and that they're not even hiding it, I think that there is something that could be down the pipe very, very soon. And for those who don't realize, they wait till things like media days to announce these things because They want to make the biggest splash possible when they do.
Yep. Very true. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened this week. Past that point, once Texas and Oklahoma happen, you shouldn't be surprised if anything happens. I think you're right, but I think it's for a different reason, which you alluded to. Brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. I think it's as simple as this. I think it's just the timing. When it came out of Big 12 Media Days that Florida State and Clemson were trying to make moves and that sort of thing, I think that was a big news balloon floated out there to see who else might jump on board. And I think with some people perhaps outside the Big 12, that was leaked as a way to protect some current schools and get them in a bigger conference if the Big 12 ends up being on the outside looking in. So, Caleb, that's my reason, is timing. I just thought it was very odd to hear of realignment from a media days, plural, in the Big 12 right before the ACC and SEC and Big 10 have theirs.
Yeah, I thought so too. And at first I'm like, maybe I took the report at face value and I shouldn't have, because it happened during Big 12 Media Days. So it could easily be something that the Big 12 leaked to try to steer a narrative of some sort. Maybe they did that to see if what if they did this? What if the Big 12 leaked that because it was Big 12 Media Days and they wanted other teams that are potentially high profile teams just to see if they would take an interest in joining the Big 12?
Quite possible. Just I see what you're saying. Get the ball rolling that there could be realignment and see who's up. So maybe you're looking for Florida State and Clemson, but they can't make the move, so you get somebody else that gets motivated. Brought to you by Apex Apparel Group Design. 15% off your first order. Call Tyler right below. Design, brand, and market. They have the unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. Check out the shirt. Looks fantastic. Oh, I looked the wrong side. Offthehooksports.com is where you can check that out. And we will certainly tell Tyler that, you got to take care of our guys. That's why you call them, get 15% off your business. 865-919-3001. 865-919-3001. So, Caleb, I'm going to give you one question right now that you can ask Josh Heupel, and he has to be 100% honest.
One question that I could ask Josh Heupel, and he has to be 100% honest. Why didn't you bring Nico?
Okay. Mine's way deeper than that. Not better, but deeper, because that's newsier. Mine is how, not would, because that's a yes or no answer. How disappointed would you be if Nico Iamaleava didn't win a Heisman Trophy and Tennessee didn't win a national championship with him as a quarterback? And there's different levels.
That's a much better one, yes.
There's different levels of that. If you have to be 100% honest, well, we're giving it a swing. We hope that everything works out. You need breaks. It is sports. The other side of that is, man, you got to win it with him or you may never win it. Caleb, I think what do you think he would say to that? How disappointed would he be?
I think he'd be extremely disappointed. And I spoke too soon last time. For some reason in my mind, it was just what question would you ask, not what question would you ask if he could be fully honest. My question, if he could be fully honest, was how much did having Joe Milton hold back your offense last year? If you had to be fully honest.
That's better. I lose. You get the prize. There we go. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Stay with us. SEC Media Days live from Dallas, Texas will continue throughout the week. It'll be Tennessee at the podium on Tuesday. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Off the Hook Sports.